Hey everybody, it's Craig with ClipScribe. Today I'm going to be talking to you about stepping up your video content from a technical standpoint, specifically from your camera and your lens standpoint, okay? How can you get better quality video for your video content, but specifically focusing on affording a lens for your camera? So today, we're not talking about smartphones. We're not talking about webcams. We're talking about using a digital SLR camera to shoot your video content, which is something I recommend if you're going to have a space in your business or in your home where you're going to shoot content regularly. And the benefit of it is you can add this into you can create your studio, you can turn it on, it can go into your computer. There are ways to use this basically as a webcam. And there's a number of ways to do that. Canon has software now that allows you to just plug in a USB-C and use it straight as a webcam. But what we're talking about today is how to do it affordably, because a lot of people avoid using these types of cameras because they don't know how to do it affordably, and they think this is gonna burn a hole in my pocket because to make it work or look good, I'm gonna have to spend a lot of money on a lot of different types of stuff, mainly, lenses, because lenses are one of the most critical factors. And what make these cameras great is the fact that you can interchange the lenses. You can change lenses out. So you can use different types of lenses. Now, when I started shooting video, one of the things that I did was I shot with a prosumer level Canon camera, which was a great camera, great quality, really, but it was affordable. That's what prosumer is. Pro level, but consumer affordability. And it was an all-in-one. It had one lens, no changing out the lenses. So I got to zoom and, autofocus and all that stuff that you would want out of just a straight video camera. Like if you were shooting news or sports or whatever, you got to be able to zoom. Switching over to a DSLR, you're thinking, I need that. Like, I need all those features. I need the zoom. I need the autofocus. It's important. But if you're making this type of content, how many times have I zoomed in this video or any of the videos I make? I prefer autofocus, but I don't need autofocus. And before recently, it wasn't really an option, but it didn't really matter because I'm staying the same distance from the camera. And most of you who are creating video content for social media, that's what you're doing. So you don't need zooming, and you don't need, a lot of autofocus either, if any autofocus. And so what I learned about was something called a fixed lens. And I didn't even know really what they were. It's just a lens that doesn't zoom. And my first thought was, well, that's gotta be a piece of junk, right? Because it doesn't zoom, it's less than. And yeah, kind of in a way it is, but in other ways, it's more than, because if you trade the zoom out, you get something much better. So what is one of the things that makes us think quality when we think of video? Depth of field is one of those things. So you see my background, how it's blurry here, and I'm crisp. Unless you've thought about it, that's one of the things that make you realize film or video is high quality, okay? When you realize it, you get it. When you're watching a movie and it looks cinematic, a lot of the time it's because the foreground, the subject matter is very crisp, and the background is very blurred out, okay? That effect is not easily won, okay? It is a effect that is balancing the aperture, the f-stop on your lens, and the exposure. So the aperture is measured in f-stops, and it determines how big the lens is basically opened up to allow light to come into it, okay? The bigger the aperture, the more you're going to be able to achieve that depth of field effect that makes the quality look really great. Now, here's the tricky, confusing thing is that you measure the size of the aperture in reverse. So the lower the number, the better. Sorry about that. It still confuses me to this day. But the lower the number, the better. And the way I think about it is just simply that, lower is better. Just do it in caveman talk, lower, better. So when I look at a lens, if the aperture, goes down to 1.4, then I know that's going to be good. And it is good. Like anything from 1 to 2, or really 1 to 3 is going to be pretty good. And you're going to get a really good picture with a lot of this depth of field effect. Now, remember, you don't really need, again, you don't need to zoom because you can move the camera. So you can position the camera wherever you want to. And so with a fixed lens, you get that benefit. Now you're trading out the zoom, but you can affordably get a lens that has an f-stop. I'm going to say a low f-stop just to avoid confusion, a low number. So you can get that really great picture at a low price. So let me give you an example of that. Okay, this is a Canon 50mm lens. It's a fixed lens. It's well known because it's very cheap. I think it was $100 maybe. It's all made of plastic. It's not super high quality parts, but you can get incredible pictures or video out of this little cheap 50mm lens. And so it's awesome in that respect. I've got a couple other lenses. I think this is a 40mm. It's kind of a little bit wider than this 50mm. And by the way, the lower the millimeter number goes, the wider the lens is going to be. I'm shooting this with a 24mm lens. It's a rather wide shot because the camera is about 2 feet away from me right here. Either of these I probably couldn't even do in this room. They would have to go too far back. So if you have a small place, you'd want to use a wide angle. But both of these are relatively inexpensive lenses. This one's a little bit more expensive. I think it was a couple $100. I think this 24mm was $250 or something like that. But they're great quality, and the lower that f-stop number goes, the other aspect of it is because the aperture opens up wider, you don't have to have as much light, okay? So you can have a more lit up looking scene without having to add a ton more light. Now let's look at this guy. This is a zoom lens, all right? This is 24mm to 85mm, what it says right there, which means 24 is the same focal length as this one, as it is right now, but it can go all the way to 85, which is going to be like you're going to have to stand a bit away from somebody to shoot at 85mm, so it's got some zoom on it. However, let's look at the f-stop range here. This one goes from 3.5 to 4.5. So when it's 24mm, the aperture opens to 3.5, and when it goes to the 85mm, it gets smaller and goes down to 4.5. And I can tell you from experience, and this is the lens that came with my first DSLR, it's not good. It's not a good lens. The quality you get out of this thing is poor, and you have to have a lot of light to get a reasonably decent picture or video. And especially if you want to achieve this depth of field effect, you're gonna have to have a ton more light. And even then, you're probably not going to achieve what you want to achieve with this zoom lens, because the f-stop is not made for that, basically, on this lens. This one right here, this is another fixed lens. As you can see, I love fixed lenses. This is 85mm, same as this, but the f-stop on this guy is 1.8. You remember I said anywhere between like 1 to 2 is good. This thing produces stunning photos and video, but it's 85mm, so it's much more narrow. I would have to be probably 30 feet that way, 30 feet that way to use this lens to shoot here, because this room is small. So wide angle is better in that case. So what is the point of this? The point of this is, don't be afraid of a DSLR, a more professional camera, like a Canon Rebel you could get for whatever, $200 or $300. Almost all my cameras I've ever bought, I bought used. And so you can get great technology for a few $100 and get 1 or 2 of these lenses and really start getting some impressive looking visuals, crank up your depth of field here, blur out your background, and get really great looking video without spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, let me give you one final comparison. I don't have this lens. I've always kind of drooled over it, but there's a kind of a famous Canon lens that you've probably already all seen. It's a big white one. They use it in sports a lot. And that lens will get you these f-stops, these really low numbers, with the zoom aspect as well. And so you'll see sports, like a lot of times sports, they'll shoot, football players, basketball players, that looks amazing. The background is blurred out, but that lens is thousands and thousands of dollars, okay? So to get the quality of these little fixed lenses, but also be able to zoom in and out, it's just thousands and thousands of dollars. But for this purpose, you don't need it. Then you can get a little lens, a little plastic lens like this that's fixed. Sure, you're throwing away the zoom factor, but if you're just shooting over and over to a camera to talk to your customers or your clients, or to do some marketing and advertising, you can get a great picture out of it. You can look really professional and only spend, maybe a few $100 on it, on the camera and the lens itself. And it works great. And I love it. So hopefully that helps you out, gives you a little info. Definitely let me know if you have any questions, anything I can answer on this topic. I'd love to help you out any way you can, help you make better video content and be proud of the content you're creating, and make you look more and more professional and awesome. So thanks everybody for watching. This is Craig Lillard, and I'll see you on another